gonna speak while you're distracted by the levels you dare to climb. A straight shooter with nostalgia I haven't felt in a long while. You make it feel like it's the arcade when we're playing pixel out until the day breaks. We'll keep breaking down, let's hope the next play brings change, the score is rising as the screen fades. Ain't over when you stay. Now who's that saying they're the pinball wizard? He moves too slow with his grubby little fingers. Keep pressing buttons and see what gets triggered. I'll just smile and watch him reconsider again.
Woo! What's going on? This is The Fight Guy. And I'm your host, Guy Pert. Today I'm going to be giving a full updated breakdown of UFC 311. That's right, I said updated. There's been a bit of drama with the main event, so they have been swapped. I'll get into that momentarily, but before we do so, the first thing I'm going to be covering is the press conference, full breakdown, the good, the bad, the ugly, winners, losers, that sort of thing. Following that, it's going to be a full technical breakdown of all the fights on the card that matter, and ending with the Fight Guys 2025 bingo card that I created. You're welcome to track on your own. I'll get into the rules of that at the end of the video. I'm excited for it. I'm excited for everything to come here. A little bit about this channel. I will be doing a Friday, that's this episode's, pre-fight video. Following the fights on Saturday, I will be doing a second video on Sunday, giving a full breakdown of all the fights that occurred and how we held up, that sort of thing. I think the Friday episodes are going to be a little bit more fun, a little bit more comedic, sprinkling some jokes in here or there. And the Sunday episodes are going to be a little bit more, if you're good at school or if you're Asian, you'd probably enjoy the breakdowns a little bit more. Nonetheless, it's all going to be fun. But before I get into the video, a little bit about me and my background. I grew up wrestling in Ohio. I do jiu-jitsu now. Used to coach wrestling for a little bit. I worked with Ric Flair once. Ric Flair, that's right. But we couldn't quite agree on time, so that didn't work out. I'm a Dallas stand-up comedian, and I love the UFC. So without further ado, let's get into this thing. Boom, the UFC 311 press conference. It was very electric, I'll say that, but it was not very heated, like a Colby Covington press conference or, like a Conor McGregor press conference. Nothing close to that tier. The reason being, I think, the crowd was there. All the tools were at the table, except the four guys that you see here, the main event and the co-main event guys. Look at them. All four of them, they have less training in the English language than our police officers do, and that says a lot. It sounded like you took two phones on speakerphone and you let them talk to each other.
Yeah, how can I help you? Hello? Yeah, how can I help you?
It's a Chinese restaurant.
Yeah, how can I help you? Yeah.
What?
Yeah,
What can I order?
how can I help you?
What do you mean?
For my creatine, there's two winners and there's two losers of each press conference. That's just what I go by, and one of each is a big winner and a big loser. Starting with just the loser of the press conference last night, it's got to be Merab. I mean, look, the guy. How do you not like the guy? First off, if you're a casual and you're like, oh, he wrestles too much, then I suppose your brain doesn't work. I understand why you wouldn't like him, but other than that, the guy, what's there not to love? I mean, he emigrated here, came here the right way to America. He worked a construction job when he got here, part-time, so he could train MMA. Maybe that's why the Mexicans love him so much. But Umar was successfully able to get in Merab's head. I mean, he said one comment about Merab not being a real true Georgian, and that set him off because he emigrated to America and he lives in America now or whatever. He went on a 6.5 minute tear in English, more broken down than your father's F-150, about how great America is and something about geography. I think he gave some tax advice in there. This guy needs a lawyer present the next time he gets on a press conference table to really help him out, I think. I mean, the White House head translator would have resigned his position if he had to translate half of what that man said last night. So Umar was successfully able to get in Merab's head. It can make him second guess some things about, whatever. A day or two before the fight, it's not always a good thing to see from a guy that you may want to win. And for that reason, I mean, look, you could even see here Umar and Islam looking at each other like, what the fuck is this guy saying? I mean, it was a lot. For that reason, Merab is last night's loser of the press conference. But speaking of losers, let's get into the biggest loser. Sweet dreams, baby. Sweet dreams. I mean, what went wrong? Everything went wrong for this guy last night. Look, this is the face of somebody who's fucked up, to say the least. I mean, he just said something that maybe he should have left to Twitter. To start things off, the first time he got the opportunity to speak, the entire crowd, this is what I meant when I said that it was electric, was chanting Chama, Chama, Chama. I mean, cool. How demoralizing is that? You get knocked out. Your next fight, the guy that knocked you out isn't even fighting, and all of your fans or people there to watch are chanting the guy that just knocked you out. That's a tough sell. That's a tough sell. And then what happens next really put the nail in the coffin. I want you to check this out.
Also, it'll be the other way. It don't matter. You just got to put some meat in their face. Pause.
What's for RENATO, MOICANO?
That's a tough sell, Jamal. That's a real tough sell. However, I'll do this for you. Anytime that I pick the biggest loser of a UFC pay-per-view press conference, 9 times out of 10, more times than not, I'm picking that guy to win the fight. And I'll tell you why. Because if Jamal does what he's supposed to do, if he, after the press conference last night, he went to his hotel room, if he's doing it right now, and he is on Twitter, reading some of the memes and comments and watching some of the videos on YouTube Shorts of people grilling him for talking about big meat and big faces and meat and big faces, all that kind of stuff, he's going to get pissed off. And hopefully, this match, I already had it as a coin flip. Hopefully that's enough for him to get the knockout. Plus, your career is kind of over. It's over for Jamal Hill at this point because of what he said last night. It is sweet dreams. Good night. Thanks for coming. You don't talk about big meat, in somebody's face after, Saturday night, and then you get knocked out by that guy, and then everybody in the arena is chanting Chama, who also had his big meat in your face your last fight. Now you got, you built up this case about big meat. The last 2 fights, there's other guys' big meats in your face. It's not a good look. It is a tough sell. So hopefully that's enough. I got him to win just because of this alone. And I'll get into the technical breakdowns. It doesn't matter at this point. What's been said has been said. But let's get into the winners. Yeah, the winner of last night's press conference for me is Kevin Holland. And I'll tell you why. He only said one thing, maybe 2 things, 2 comments. But the one that he delivered, he dropped the bomb on Ranier's head. Reporter asked Ranier a technical question that it's a pretty softball question, really. Reporters will ask pretty much every fighter ever has been asked this. But, it is Ranier's first fight in the UFC. So the reporter said, hey, Ranier, it's your first fight in the UFC. You're going up against Kevin Holland. Do you think that your grappling's enough to match up with his? Do you think that your striking is on level with his? How do you see this playing out Saturday, Ranier? And Ranier just completely dodges the question, didn't hear it, just starts talking about, Americans are wild. Who's drinking here? Raise your hand if you're drinking. I'll drink with you. I'm going to drink with you Saturday. What, dude? Kevin Holland just picks up the microphone and he looks over at him.
And I can party like all these people afterwards, man. Come on.
Even if you get knocked out, you can still party with all these people Saturday night, no matter what.
Kevin Holland, ladies and gentlemen, a company man, saving fight cards and saving press conferences. since he's been in the organization. For me, that was enough to hand him the dub, the winner of the press conference last night, Kevin Holland. But not the biggest winner. The biggest winner, without a doubt, RENATO MOICANO. Money MOICANO. And I'll tell you why. Not even the fact that this guy is stepping in to fight Islam Makhachev for the main event on a one-day notice. This guy walks into the press conference with a handful of $100 bills, throws into the crowd. Now you gotta win the fight. And then he starts, talking shit about taxes and government and stuff. Fully on board, loving it. And then he drops this bombshell on Gavin Newsom, just with everything going on in LA right now. After praising the firefighters and first responders for everything that they're doing, he says this about Gavin Newsom, and the crowd goes wild. Check it out.
Fires in California, you deserve better than Gavin Newsom. Fuck that, let's go.
Fuck that, let's go. MOICANO, the biggest winner of the press conference, but without further ado, let's break down these fights. I couldn't wait for this breakdown. Really, this is one of the... I've been looking forward to this pay-per-view for a long time, and it's here. The main event, Tsarukyan, right, against Islam. Not. There's been a little bit of drama, as discussed previously. RENATO MOICANO, money man, money MOICANO, stepping in on a one-day notice, walking away from his fight against Beneil Dariush for an upgraded new car against Islam Makhachev. That's the shocking news that just dropped today. I want to get into this in a minute, but before we do that, we got to start with the first fight on the main card, Kevin Holland and Reinier de Ridder. I love this matchup. First off, Kevin Holland, he is one of my favorite fighters. Got to get that bias out there. Let you know now, he's probably your favorite fighter's favorite fighter. Why? This guy will fight anybody, anytime, anywhere. It doesn't matter. What the UFC needs, he delivers. He fights in between two different weight classes. I've seen him at welterweight in the recent past. Fights up to middleweight. Fighting guys bigger than him. He has a great grappling capability. I think his game's pretty well developed. But he chooses to stand up and bang. And like I said, sometimes these guys are bigger and stronger than him, and he still chooses to stand up and strike. RDR striking lacks a bit. It is his first fight in the UFC, so I think Kevin Holland's a great fit for him. Really test his striking capabilities here. RDR is going to go for the takedown early on in this fight. If he finds success, then I think he'll walk away with this fight, maybe even submit Kevin Holland. But even after he takes him down, only half the work is done. Check out this armbar clip from Kevin Holland's last fight. He's locked it up, left foot over the head, securing the wrist here. Kevin's right arm under the leg, just to keep the Polish man in the same spot here, rolls him over. It's fully locked in. You're not getting out at this point. Herb standing, watching, best seat in the house. Oh man, that armbar is so tight. You can see Kevin's talking to him. Ha ha, ha ha. Tap, boy. He's about to look over to Herb, like, hey man, something just snapped. You gonna stop this soon? I don't think the bone's supposed to be coming at this angle, buddy. So even if RDR does take Holland down, it's only half the work. This guy's got a serious guard game. Like I said, his ground game is very well developed. Versus, the bigger loophole in this fight is RDR striking. RDR striking is so piss poor, it makes your girlfriend's hands look like Floyd Mayweather in his prime. I mean, this guy leaves more openings than your first job at high school. My prediction for this fight, if Kevin Holland can stuff the takedowns early on, he's going to land enough strikes and maybe damage to get him out of there early this fight. I could even see Kevin Holland by knockout. So Kevin Holland, he's going to win this fight. Will you check back with me on Sunday and we'll see how we did, right? Let's move on to the next one. We have Almeida and Spivak for the second fight on the main card. This was a prelim fight. I know if you've watched any video on YouTube, anytime probably before this one came out, you would have seen a breakdown with these guys on the prelims. However, they had to do some shape shifting to move Money MOICANO up to fight Islam. So this fight has been bumped up to the second fight on the main card. I think it's a fantastic matchup. Both these guys are amazing grapplers. Almeida, more of a jiu-jitsu guy. Spivak, Sambo, wrestling background. So it'd be really interesting to see what happens when you lock these two in a cage together. Almeida is a Dana White Contender Series guy. I don't typically bet against Contender Series guys. These are studs. As you can see, I think the Vegas has this factored in somehow. We have another Contender Series guy. He's on the prelims, so I'll get to that in a minute. But yeah, typically I don't bet against Contender Series guys, and I'm going to stick with my philosophy for this fight. I think Almeida can potentially get a submission. However, this fight is going to come down to whose gas tank's bigger than the other one's. I think both these guys are going to respect each other's grappling. Early on in the fight, you might even see the entire first round just be striking. I wouldn't be surprised. But once the grappling starts to mix in, if it does get to the grappling, I'd be really interested to see how Sergey handles this. He's a dominant wrestling guy, Sambo guy, will get top pressure and deal damage. Almeida, jiu-jitsu guy's got a fantastic set of weapons from his guard. So this is just going to be a fun fight to watch. The money line, it doesn't look like a fun one to bet on. So maybe, don't bet on this fight unless you're a gambling addict or you really think you know what's going to happen. Go for it. But this is just going to be a popcorn. Enjoy the science behind the MMA grappling world. I want to move on to the next fight here. Let's see who we got. Oh, Battle of the Big Mouth and the Bald Man. Yuri, if you haven't heard, he did get a haircut. He is now bald. Maybe I'll drop a picture. Yuri's movement is really unorthodox. It's hard to follow. It's hard to read if you're fighting him. You see him move around a lot. His hands are all over. Looks like he's trying to put a football or rugby juke on. But look, he's got twice the pro fights plus some than Jamal Hill does, despite them being the same age. I do think Yuri is naturally a little bit bigger, muscular. But it is obvious both these guys are suffering heavily from CTE. It's hard to tell who it's affecting more. Yuri, I think he's learned to live with it. He's done the samurai thing for a little bit. That worked out, and he's switching to the cancer patient thing. I kind of like that. But Hill has just got the knockout power. I think he's going to land. Like I said, just based off of his comment at the press conference, he has to win this fight. I think he knows that. This one's a coin toss. It's a pick'em. I got Jamal Hill by knockout. We're going to see. Yuri, besides his 2 losses to Chama, hasn't lost in nearly a decade. Jamal Hill, coming off of a knockout loss, wants to redeem that. So this is going to answer a lot of questions in the light heavyweight division. I got Jamal by knockout, and let's move on to the next fight. We have our co-main event. Merab Dvalishvili. I'm going to call him Duval because I can't pronounce his name, and I've refused to ever sit down and take the time necessary to learn how to pronounce it. So Merab Duval against Umar Nurmagomedov. This is a fantastic fight. Where do I even begin with this one? I think that Umar is the only guy in this division with equal or better grappling than Merab's. Merab's grappling is just relentless, just non-stop takedown attempt. Let me throw a feint overhand straight to takedown attempt. Everything is setups around his takedown and grappling ability. I think that he's not going to be able to rely on that like he has with every single one of his previous fights against Umar. I don't know if the strategy is going to change up at all, but the relentless attack, the 49 takedown attempts against Jan. We're going to see a lot of takedown attempts. I doubt we'll see 49. But this is going to answer a lot of questions for everybody in the bantamweight division. Like I said, Umar, I think, is the only one with equal or better grappling. And I think that his striking is better. He will go out for the knockout punch if it's there. Merab, he's a volume puncher. He's a tax puncher kind of guy. I say tax puncher because the punches add up over time, especially in a 5-round fight. I don't know. I don't think that it is impossible to see this fight ending in a KO. Maybe see Merab get knocked out. I got Umar winning this fight. And it's as simple as that. I'd like to move on to the main event now, baby. Main event. Islam Makhachev against Renato Money MOICANO. I love this fight. MOICANO's jiu-jitsu is solid. You know, he trains with Gilbert Burns. A lot of studs down there in Brazil. This guy loves America. I love America. You know, I want MOICANO to win. It would be the biggest upset. Let me just show you this consensus score. It's an account I follow on X. They're great. They do live polls, as you can see, for all the fights. So you can go and vote and kind of see, you know, where your opinion holds up against others. It's a great account. I follow them. They put up a post the moment that this was announced, and it looks like MOICANO's only got about a 16-17% opinion in the public. So just like that, we're on the preliminary fights, everybody's group of fights. If you're a casual and you don't watch the prelims, I highly recommend you do watch the prelims. A lot of times, from my experience, the preliminary fights, the early prelim fights are fireworks. They're fantastic fights to watch. A lot of the clips that end up on ESPN and the UFC's social media accounts are prelim highlights. I mean, sure, you know, you got a lot of good top contender fights, title fights, but the preliminary fights are often overlooked and people don't tune in for them for whatever reason. I could tell you the first fight on this prelim is fireworks. We have Tagir Ulanbekov against Clayton Carpenter. This is going to be Clayton Carpenter's fourth fight, technically, in the UFC, if you want to count his Dana White Contender Series decision victory as a UFC fight. He's had 2 submissions since. So the kid's, you know, he's a hot prospect. If you look at the matchup here, he's got a 5-year youth advantage over Tagir, a 2-inch reach disadvantage. When we look at Tagir, he trains out of Eagles MMA, which is Khabib's fight camp, where also the main event and co-main have trained. He's on a 2-fight win streak with a loss against Tim Elliott in the 3rd round. Besides that, I'm not sure if he's had another loss in the UFC. Yeah, it was before the UFC. See, I kind of know what I'm talking about a little bit. But yeah, I think this is a great matchup. Clayton, you know, this is definitely going to be a big fight for him. I believe Tagir's ranked 12, so this would get him into the top 15 right off the get-go in the flyweight division. Big opportunity for him. I think he was a plus 260 something, plus 265. It's going to be a great fight. I think Clayton's going to win this fight, but I'm just, you know, I'm sticking it to the man. All right, moving on to the second fight here. We have Ricky Turcios against Bernardo Sopaj. Oh, man, where do I even start with this one? Ricky, well, originally this fight was supposed to happen on November 9th. It got pushed back 2 months due to a medical emergency on Ricky's end. Ricky's nickname is Pretty, which makes sense because if you looked at this guy's social media or his profile picture, he's pretty fucking ugly. He did not fight all of 2023. Then in June of 2024, last year, he got submitted by the youngest guy in the UFC, Raul Rosas. Bernardo's only had 1 fight in the UFC, and it was a knockout loss via flying knee in the 3rd. So this is a fight I would like to call a bathroom break fight. If you want to go to the grocery store, you need to get some chips and guac before the next fights or more entertaining ones. Or if you just need to go and drop a hog in the toilet, this would be the time to do that when these guys walk out. You should have about 20 minutes before this next fight here. I like this next fight. Yeah, this fight's going to be good, I think. Rinya Nakamura against Muin Gafarov. This is one of the ones that I had circled, one of the 6 I'd mentioned previously before they updated the card. I'm excited for this. Rinya, he's obviously undefeated, 9-0. He's had 3 previous fights in the UFC before this one. He's finished 6 of 9 wins. Out of his last 3, 2 went to decision. And things get interesting when you look at the other side of this, the underdog side, Gafarov. He's also only had 3 fights in the UFC. 2 were losses. And his one win was over. It was an unimpressive win. I think it was over a guy that could be named after a Korean beer. What was it? Kyung Ho Kang. Yeah, Korean beer, like I said. Yeah, so I like Rinya. He's a hot prospect. I want to see him, dig a little bit deeper in the rankings, see what he could stir up. I'm hopeful that Gaffarov will take a nap on every Buffalo Wild Wings TV in the country. We'll find out tomorrow night. Let's move on to the next fight we have here. I think this is the only women's fight on the card, and I'm correct. All right, here we go. Carol Rosa versus Aylin Perez. This one wasn't one of the ones that I had circled. Only female fight on the card, which is cool. I like cards like that. I will say this. There will never be a champion ever with the name Carol of any sport unless she's a transgender golfer, and you could take that to the bank and cash it. Aylin Perez, on the other hand, she's got a dump truck on her that can bring Tupac back from the grave and end world hunger. Here's a clip of her celebration on her last fight. Yep, that's where ESPN and Disney are sending their money. All right, next fight, we have Grant Dawson against Diego Ferreira. This is a great fight. We'll start with Diego, the underdog. Look, this is a great matchup. Diego is the kryptonite to Superman, if Superman was UFC fighters with 2 losses. So, don't count this guy out because he's a plus 200. He's 2 in his last 5, but he is on the 2-fight win streak. Those fights were, he's knocked out Michael Johnson. In his most recent fight, he's knocked out Matus Rebecki, whose only other loss was via KO about a decade ago in 2014. But Grant Dawson, baby. Grant Dawson's only 2 losses were via KO. So like I said, it could be the kryptonite to Superman here. But it does tell you everything you need to know about Grant Dawson's fighting style. He's a grappling dominant guy, top pressure, definition of ground and pound. He'll hold you down, maintain control, take mount, and land elbows until your face turns to a different shade of red that you've never seen before. I like this guy. He trains at American Top Team with the best of them. I got Grant Dawson to win. This was one of my fights that I had circled to be one of the best fights of the night. This was the first fight that got changed on this fight card. It was originally supposed to be Johnny Walker against Bogdan Guskov, but we just got Bogdan against this new guy in the UFC, Billy Eligkana. He is 7-1. That looks pretty, but whenever you dig a little bit, you'll see that none of his wins are in the UFC. That's because this is his first fight in the UFC. He's coming off of a knockout win in LXF. He's going to finish Billy, let's say round 1. Let's move on to the next fight. That's all I got to say about that one. All right, next fight we have here, Zachary Reese and Azamat Bekov. This will be a great fight, I think. Zachary Reese opening as a slight underdog. This is going to be Azamat's first fight in the UFC. He's been on a tear in the LFA and some other organizations, but first fight in the UFC, another Russian. They're taking over Los Angeles. You've heard it here. But I think Zachary Reese can win this fight. He's 8-1. His last 4 fights were in the UFC. Dana White Contender Series victory, knockout loss to Cody Brundage, and 2 victories since. And since his last appearance, he has chopped off his hair. Following Peyton Talbot, who we're going to get to in a minute, he's also chopped off his hair. And as I mentioned earlier, Yuri has chopped off his hair as well. I think out of the 3 guys that have chopped off their hair, the only one that's going to lose is going to be Yuri. I think Zachary Reese is going to finish this guy. I saw him get knocked out live. It was really tough to watch. He was doing very well up until that point. I think it was a small minor mistake when he locked in the triangle. He forgot to hook a leg too, so he couldn't get lifted like he did. But it is tough anytime you lose to a guy with a hairline like Cody Brundage. It's tough to come back from that. So a lot, is similar to Jamal Hill, how he has a lot to prove here. But shaving the head, getting slam knocked out from Cody Brundage, that'd be enough to piss me off if I was Zachary Reese. So I got ZR via finish. All right, before I dive into the last fight on the preliminary card, I want to remind you, if you haven't done so already, and I hate it Oh, I hate it when content creators do this. But if you haven't already, go ahead and give this video a like down at the bottom. If you're enjoying the content so far and you want to see some of the special segments that I'm going to unroll as the year goes on, as well as a potential fighter interview coming up shortly, hit that subscribe button and you will stay in the loop with what I'm doing. But without further ado, let's move on to the last fight. The last fight of the preliminary card is easy to break down. Peyton Talbot's going to knock this guy out. That's what's going to happen. This Raoni Barcelos, I'm not even sure who he's fought. I did a little bit of research myself, but I mean, Umar Nurmagomedov. He got knocked out by Umar. Other than that, he's dog shit. He's going to get knocked out by Peyton Talbot as well. If you don't believe me, check back tomorrow. All right, this is the Fight Guy 2025 bingo card of the year. Before I explain this anymore, I'll just start by reading off all of the unlikely scenarios, spaces on this bingo card that I created. And I'll hide my camera so you can see the top right. But left to right, fighter shorts come off in octagon. Fighter attacks the referee. Bruce Buffer announcing error, impossible. John Anik making an out-of-pocket comment about a fighter's personal life. Tony Ferguson retires. God-awful scorecard. Undefeated fighter getting finished. No contest. Fighter makes an anti-Trump call-out after a fight. Colby Covington wins a fight or loses a fight without making an excuse about it. Main event misses weight. Body slam knockout. Free space. Michael Bisping correcting Lorisenko. Khabib coached fighter loses. Women's fight ending in a head kick. A fight breaking out in the stands. A plus 500 or more underdog winning. Money Moicano tonight. Tomorrow night. Card in Louisiana, not since 2015. Fighter cries in post-fight interview. Mouthpiece. Flies out after a knockout. All bearded champions. Illegal knee on a downed opponent. John Jones or Dana White versus their wife, part 2. And the last space on the bingo card is Sean Strickland not going to a decision in a fight this year. All right. So that's the bingo card. I'll get into a little bit more of it on Sunday's video where I will be filling out my first space. But that's going to do it for me. That is the end of episode 1 of The Fight Guy. If you enjoyed the video, please leave a like, subscribe to the channel, drop a comment if you feel like it. But we're in store for some great fights tomorrow night. I'm excited about it. I hope you are too. Hopefully Moicano didn't disappoint anybody. He could upset everybody tomorrow night. Can't wait to watch him. I will see you on Sunday.